I don't know if people talk enough about what it's like to live alone, like truly be alone. Maybe they do somewhere else, but I haven't seen it spoken about a lot. And it comes with highs and lows, comes with self empowerment, but a lot of frustration too. So it sort of ebbs and flows. I think when you've been alone for a long period, you can become independent. I think it goes two ways. I think some people throw themselves in and out of frivolous situations, relationships, vices to fill a void. And I think other people, they become self empowered, motivate themselves, and focus on what it is that makes them happy and fulfilled in a given situation, whether it's career, hobbies, and entertainment. And the thing is, it can become sort of hyper independence. It can get quite to the point where you don't really want to let someone else in. And I think, to be honest, let's say it can be positive and negative. Like for me personally, it gets really lonely sometimes. Only really when I take a moment to catch up with where I'm at. That's what it is. It's like I'm not always feeling lonely because I'm too busy in my own mind. I'm too busy creating. I'm too busy. I'm always distracted. I've always got something on that I'm doing. But it does come periods when you just think, like, what is all this for? This is just unless you're coexisting with people and creating memories. It gets to the point where all the healing you do to yourself and the focused attention and no distraction sort of thing. It's just, but for what? I don't think we've been put here to just isolate to such an extent. And I can only talk from personal experience, with what I'm like. You know, I could easily hunker down and just stay inside forever. That's what I'm like. I also have an outgoing personality, so I mix well in groups, and I can be the life of the party at times. But there's a real strong side of me that just is happy just to be like a hermit, and I'm fine with it. So because I have that tendency to myself, it's just, I won't allow anybody to destroy my peace. So it means very selective of those who can come into my life. But there's a financial hardship that comes with it. And again, I think it can go both ways, because you could be in a relationship with someone who just drains not only their finances where they're not supporting, but also draining yours too. So it's not always 100% that someone in a relationship has more finite resources, but they have the potential to. And when you're on your own, you're truly alone. You don't have someone that can sort of like help you through it. There's no one that you can just lean on for a moment. Help me with this crisis, or let me fit this situation. A little bit of assistance, because you're in it together. You haven't got that. You're in it on your own. There also comes a point where, like anybody, no matter how intelligent you are, it's always useful to have another opinion. But again, then go both ways. If you're in the wrong relationship, negative opinion that completely destroys you, makes life incredibly exhausting. But on your own, again, you're literally at the mercy of yourself. And in a way, it's good because you become empowered to it, and you can trust your thoughts and what your opinions are on things, because you're literally surviving through on a continual basis. Um, and through that, you gain an awful lot of wisdom and clarity, because you have to think for yourself. You can't afford to hide behind someone else, because there is no one. Where some people, they'll go in and out of relationships and they won't take responsibility of anything, and then they put the weight of the choices and all sorts of responsibilities on the other person. So again, it goes full circle with all of it. But what I think is, it's on your own. It can be really exhausting, like truly, just because no matter what you create or what you do, unless you've got someone to share it with, in some ways it's meaningless. It doesn't mean you're not enjoying yourself. It doesn't mean there isn't a reason why you do. But if there's no one to share it with, create a memory, and I think coexist, it's almost for nothing. To a point, 'cause like I say, if you're doing it for the right reasons, of course, then it doesn't matter what you're doing, as long as you're having fun and it empowers you, I think it's valid. But even sort of like hobbies and interests, it doesn't. It's not as significant, is it? So like for instance, if we just put into perspective, like my books, for instance, I could write my books. If there's never an audience for it, you could argue, what's the point? You know, it's empowering to me, and it's a life goal fulfilled. But it's like it's empty to a point, isn't it? But there could be, if no one ever reads them, for instance. Yeah, I feel proud I did it, and I know the quality that's in it. I know it can help people. But because if no one reads it, those books could just as well be empty. So although it's sort of feels worthwhile to me and it's empowering, in some ways it's pointless. You know, you didn't there was no if you, the wisdom you put on that page is internal anyway. You carry it every day. So it's not like, for instance, with my books, it's not like I haven't got anything to learn from my books because I've put my wisdom in the book. Now, I might read it, and I do sometimes, you know, when I go through phases, I just want to catch up on what I've read. And I'll go, oh, that was a great chapter. Oh, that was a great chapter. But I'm not telling myself anything new because I already know it. So even just within that, but then I think also about the memories we create, you know, I think there's a lot of life that gets missed, I think. And like I say, if you're in the wrong relationship, you're just as lost anyway. And it's probably even harder because they have to sort of come out of that situation and then reset. But I think the comparison really shouldn't be between being alone and being in toxic situations. I think the comparison should be being alone and being in that beautiful relationship. And that's when you really realize how um, sort of pointless to an extent something is. Like if you see the toxic relationship, of course, now you feel better than that person, than that situation, because I wouldn't want to be in that. That's the living hell. You know, you can deal with your own mental torments and your internal battles and know that at any, like you're free. So there's something beautiful about that. But I think if you're in a toxic relationship, you lose that freedom and you have that internal conflict, you know. That is exhausting beyond belief. But if we compare it to, like, say, put someone in a beautiful relationship, it's like all those memories you could be creating. And then upon reflection, sometimes you look at the things that you do, the vices we have, the hobbies we create. I think personally, sometimes it's not that you don't enjoy it, but I think sometimes we create distractions for ourselves to cope. Like, for instance, I've talked quite openly that at the moment I'm gaming quite a lot. And in all honesty, it's thrown me off and I'm quite frustrated because I've always been a gamer. So it's naturally in me and it's something I enjoy. But when I've got so much pulling at me in terms of like my focus on like the projects I need to work on, it's actually gaming is a very time consuming hobby because a lot of tinkering depending on what you're doing and not just playing. And again, depends how you play games. If you're a console gamer, fine, you can just switch it off. But if you play on a PC or like, for instance, the handheld gaming device I just got, I'm tinkering like crazy with that. Um, and it just consumes time. And yet, when I think back, maybe like a month or so ago, I was really happy when I say happy, I had energy. You know, I wasn't tired. And it's when I was like creating more of a serene life, one of very balanced. And that was like reading. I was enjoying reading again. I started to collect books and I was enjoying that. I found out a cozy space to sit. I'm not consumed by technology and all this materialism. And it was really, I just found out like it was a happy space. But my mind is always firing everywhere. And like I say, you can't, like I said in other videos, you're not octopuses. So I think sometimes I think when you're with someone, they help balance you out. That's not to say you should need someone because I think that's a different thing entirely. But I think when you're with someone, especially when they're with you day in day out, first of all you have to take into consideration their needs and desires, which I personally think is, again, if it's not toxic, it provides something different to your life. Sometimes they say opposites attract, and I think to an extent that's true. But it's understanding and accepting each other's quirks, if you like, and tendencies, not keep taking it so personal. I think that's where an issue comes when people take things you do personal, and it bothers them so much because then it's like part of your identity they don't like, and it's like then it becomes toxic. But I think it's interesting when other people have different interests because it just spices things up just a little bit. And although it might not be your favorite thing, it's maybe the hobby they have or something they want to share, it's still interesting enough that it's something different to the way you would naturally think and what you would choose to do. So what I think being with someone does, I think they help bring us balance. Um, because when you're alone, you can lose that sense of balance because you're not responsible for anything but yourself. And I'll be, I'm curious whether other people are like that. You know, it's harmless, so you're not hurting anybody. But sometimes someone shining a light on something maybe just make you a little bit more aware. Because I often want more to my day, like more balance, and it's something I seek. But I'm terrible with the winter. I hate winter. It's it's hard to for me personally. It's hard for me to balance my days when the winter comes because it's almost like winter's the morning may as well be nighttime, you know. And there's no identifier to say what the time is. For me, it's an absolute nightmare. Whereas I think spring, especially summer, when the days are longer, you feel like you've got more to do. You feel more energized. The winter, it's like I'm like a bear, and I think that's just nature. It tells you to sort of go in hibernation, doesn't it? But like I say, if you've got no one to balance you to an extent, or maybe challenge you on some things, you can find yourself down a rabbit hole. I see a lot of content creators, other gamers as well. So a lot of females, weirdly enough. I say weirdly because when I was younger, that wasn't a thing. And they've got these little cozy corners. They've got the cozy like fit setup, like where I've got my gaming setup, and I love it. There's a lot of women that have that, especially those that live alone. And they say that, like people say that in these little videos they create. It's when people say, "Are you coming out tonight?" or "You're doing this," and then they just show themselves sitting there cozied up with a little blanket on their little video games, playing cozy games. Something a bit simple, relaxing, and it's just you look, you go, "Oh, that looks really nice." But I can't help but think they're probably, I wouldn't say suffering, but I'd say coping similar. I'm not saying they're not enjoying themselves because I think truly they're at peace. But I wouldn't be surprised if there's times too when they just look on and just would love romance or something just to spark their day a bit more, you know. But they don't want to just give that just to anybody because they found their peace. They're hoping that someone could settle in and merge with that peace. So yeah, it just it can get really lonely, I think. Well, it does for me. Has its moments. But like I said, there's moments when I'm perfectly fine too. But then I get a bit like sometimes I get to the point where I'm like, you know what, I'm not even thinking about it anymore because I get sick and tired of waiting for a miracle. And I'm just like, you know what, you can do a lot on your own, mate. Just get on with it. I got my daughter, and she's the priority. So the focus is her. So sometimes I dream of a romance and I just think, oh, this would be nice. I can see how it all slot together. And I understand where I'd have to sacrifice, which I'll be prepared to do because that's important. But it's not about lose your identity entirely, of course. But it'd just be nice to have someone to collaborate with, bounce ideas off. And I think realistically, when you've got someone who is a positive influence, I think it gives you a pep in your step. But again, it gives you another angle so people can see things from different sides. You know, maybe you just achieve that a little bit more. And it'd be nice not to have to keep facing the world alone all the time. Because, like I say, it becomes meaningless after a while. Effectively, I think when you're truly alone, you can create and you can potentially make a difference in others' lives. If you've got a specific skill set that people want to see, if in your, I'm talking about like professionally there. But I think privately, away from that, if you didn't have that skill set or that thing that people crave, if you live alone, it's like you're not going to be missed because no one knows you exist. So effectively, you're only existing for whatever lesson and experience you're here to embrace. And once you've given up or you don't have any more interest, it's kind of like the existence is pointless at that point, isn't it? You're just going through the motions. And I think that's quite sad. Yeah, I think when you surround yourself with people, you can learn an awful lot about yourself but also about others, because by watching others, you learn an awful lot about humanity, in society. And I've done that myself. I've watched so many people, a lot of chaotic people, manipulative people, very conniving. Um, yeah, I've seen every side of people, and I'm always amused when I watch because I see through people so quickly. It's funny. So they portray themselves one way, and I already read them like a book, and they think they've outsmarted everyone. But I'm just watching on, just looking at them like I see you as clear as day. You're definitely not what you're portraying yourself to be, and then that shine through later when people finally see it, or sometimes they don't. So the real problem is you can't trust everybody, and it's rare to find people who are worth your time. So there's that desire to have people in your life, but a deep understanding that not everybody deserves to be in your life. And of course, you can't make people heal faster. So you may go through long periods, much like myself, where it's either continue investing in self or take easy options out to feel a desire. And I am so calculating and observant that I know that path always leads to chaos. Effectively, whatever got you to the state of being alone, if you throw yourself into easy opportunities, toxic vices, it's going to be short lived. You'll be back to square one where you're alone, but you'll also carry the weight and burden of the situation you've just left and the chaos that comes with it. Um, because other people can be a living nightmare, in all honesty, and it's just the way it is. So I've been alone for a long time. So when I say about living alone and being alone, it's not like a month. I've been alone for like 8 years, and I never expected that to happen. Never anticipated it being this long. I kid you not. It's for a tumultuous breakup, which I've just explained in my father's daughter series, and separation, the trauma of being separated from my daughter, something we both have to live with. And thankfully, our relationship and bond is still as strong as ever, but we both carry the scars. But I didn't think it would be this long without someone by my side. You know, it's just my standards as I've grown have keep continually expanded and increased to the point where I just refuse to be a shell of myself. I refuse to be something I'm not. So I've looked on dating profiles, much like many other people, and I always saw things. Don't want to say things wrong in other people, but I just always noticed there's not quite a match. It's just like you'd have to lose part of yourself or suppress it to make that person accept you, or for them to understand your journey. And it shouldn't. I just don't think life should be that hard. And I don't think personally you're always going to find love through an app. So I've say recently, I say quite a lot in my videos. When I talk about my spiritual path, it throws people through a loop, and then they don't want to listen anymore. And the reality is, like for instance, on those sort of apps, it's like if they don't have the same core values and beliefs, it's just going to be an uphill battle trying to explain to them how you perceive the world, what you seek, and it'd just be a perpetual battle on a continual basis. I don't care what people think of me, but in my private life, personal life, I wouldn't want someone giving me sarcastic looks and sort of like smirky looks, like this guy's crazy. Or I don't, what is he talking about now? I don't need that shit in my life. People can do that in private; they can do that shit anywhere else, but don't do it. Do that in front of me, and I'll walk away. I can argue with the best of them, but I'm getting to the point in my life where I can't even be asked to argue anymore. I used to argue a lot, but now it's like I think the further deeper you go on this healing journey, discover yourself, the less you really care about others' opinions of you, or your thought processes. It just becomes so irrelevant. So when you argue with people, it's really to feed an ego. Your ego's hurt, so you want to validate that that what you're talking about. If something's correct, you're still healing. When you're truly healed, you don't feel a need to defend yourself so much, or at all, really. So yeah, I'm less confrontational because I inherently know the answer, but I don't need to explain myself. So if someone wants to walk away thinking they've won, it makes no difference to me what they think. So if someone thinks this of me, it makes no difference. If they think they won an argument, it makes no difference. It's like, it's irrelevant, isn't it? I know what I think of me, and I know what I think of a situation. And of course, that healing process allowed me to get to that point of that growth. But it doesn't change the fact that some days I'm really, really on my knees. Like, I'm really alone. There's a lot of pressure that comes with it as well. Especially when you're trying to achieve goals. Like, you're doing it solo, like truly solo. So, I've achieved an awful lot, and I never give myself enough credit because there's always too many goals to achieve after. I haven't even hit the top of the potential or the milestones, and it's like, it's a heavy burden to carry all the time. But I'm sure if I looked at myself 7 years ago and saw who I am today and what I've accomplished, I'll be like amazed. Like, my God, I didn't see that. So I'm hoping in the future I see that more progression. But I don't know if I've relayed enough about the loneliness. Really, I don't know if people are seeing it or not. But we can be a bit self-defeating. For instance, I have someone in mind who I always saw since I met them as my counterpart, but life sends you in different directions, derails potential. And I've had a lot of signs that they are my person. Every time I use my tarot cards on the situation, it always points positively. But I'm getting really bored of it now. Like, when I say bored, it's like I'm just losing interest, even though I know that's my person. So what I know roughly is, if it's not that person, the universe can align us with someone else, but maybe not quite as great. Or you just continue the rest of the life solo. And it's kind of like, the longer you're alone, the more comfortable you get with the idea of just doing it solo. I think you negate a lot of memories that could have been created. But it's life. You don't always get to tick all the boxes. I think that's sad because the potential's there. But I'm truly getting bored of it all now. So it's getting to the point where I'm giving up on the situation. I'm prepared to do more years alone if that's the case, until the universe aligns me with whoever it is that I will be with. But I guess I'll be in shock when that happens because I'd already given up, if you like. Really, people that are not spiritual, it's going to be hard it makes it hard for me to explain. Because if you're not spiritual and you haven't had anywhere near the signs I've had, like when I talk about signs, I've had them for years, and they're always leading me to this path, and it's continuous. It doesn't deviate. It doesn't I don't get like a sign of this and then it deviates to a sign of that. So you never know if you're coming or going. It's always on point, which is it's quite surreal, really. So when you know who your counterpart is, it's impossible to even consider a dating app, because you're doing it through hurt, loneliness, insecurity, frustration, impatience. So you're doing it for all the wrong reasons, and that's not where you're going to find the love, especially in my situation. So there's no point even looking, because I already know who the person is, and if it doesn't come to pass, then, like, for instance, the trajectory I'm on my vibration isn't going to match just a typical person anymore, because I'm too healed, too ambitious. It's going to match high caliber people, but not, again, it has to match personalities. I'm talking about people with a determination, an internal mandate to be the best version of themselves, no excuses. And like I said earlier, that some people are just incredibly toxic, and I'm low vibrational, and that's not who I'm meant to be with. It doesn't serve me a purpose when I've healed this much to be around someone that just drains the life out of me. So it'll be someone of high caliber who has a lot of respect for themselves and compassion for others, because otherwise it doesn't align with me. So it has to align, of course. So that makes it an incredibly rare person. And that's why I give up, lose hope an awful lot sometimes. Even though signs point towards someone, I don't see progress in the 3D in this life, you know? So what are the options at that point? Um, it's just I get fed up thinking about it. That's what it is. It's like I say I'll give up because I genuinely don't want to think about it anymore. I want to release myself to just continue doing what you need to do then, because you know you can fulfill aspects of life. You can still make the best of what you've got. It's harder, but you also be incredibly proud when you succeed. So it's self-made, and that's really what I've been doing. It's been focusing on career, on trying to uplift other people. That's why I do what I do. I do it because hopefully it becomes a resource or a source of help to those who go through a similar path. You don't go through it truly alone. There's like a voice telling you their story, how they coped through that situation, how they felt, the progress they've made, the ambitions they have, the boundaries they set, the expectations. And then hopefully there's progress to be made, and it's supportive. That's why I do what I do. And it gets demoralizing for me just like it would for everybody else, you know, when you do what you do and you don't even get a view. But again, if we're going to go on my spiritual side, it does point towards a lot of recognition in the future. And to be honest, I have no doubt that what I do, there's a reason for it. And I get another was I had a video today saying you're ahead of your time. When the world's ready, they will flock. And I'm like, that's interesting. There's no evidence of that. There's been no evidence at all. But likewise, there's been no evidence of said person who I consider my counterpart that they're even interested in me or that it will even happen. Yet I have sign after sign alluding to it. And I feel it internally. But I just think they've taken so long. And it's like I can't just wait around watching upon the horizon, hoping they show themselves. But then again, it's not for me to pressure them either. So life has to move forward. But because of that, it's made my life harder. It's made my life a lot harder. Because if you didn't know who the person is, for instance, it'd be a lot easier to know that something could happen at any moment in any part of life. You know? With my situation, it's more like you existing but waiting, and it's just a weird situation entirely. Like I said, if it isn't them, though, the universe will align someone else, and unless the universe wants me alone. Again, I don't like pushing the spiritual side, but I had a conversation last year with a very gifted medium. We had a channeling session, and they pointed towards my future. My path is one of service. It's a unique path. You know, I'll do a lot of good things. And there's potential for marriage and love, but apparently that's not the main goal. That's not the main quest for my path. So it means that we're going to go through my life with incredibly lonely moments where the weight is on my shoulders. Even when I am in a relationship, there'll still be a lot for me to cope with and burdened by, I suppose. That I can handle it, but it doesn't make it easy, you know. So that's why I thought maybe me talking about it might be a bit more, be quite helpful to other people who have quite a lonely existence, to know that others go through similar, but it's finding ways to cope, you know. So of course, our identity shouldn't be dependent upon someone else. That's paramount. You know, you shouldn't be seeking validation from others to feel our sense of love of self, how deserving we are of anything, status. Loving someone should just be an embracing of two souls merging together with a common goal, union in collaboration. But it shouldn't be a status symbol or, like I said, to validate our worthiness or anything. It's got nothing to do with that. We need to find that from ourselves. Which fortunately, I have that in spades. I have a deep confidence in myself. It's unwavering. So I know I can overcome absolutely anything. So I don't need someone to help me overcome everything. It'd just be nice to traverse this world with someone, in union. Um, because I have quite an outgoing personality, a very, very community guided sort of personality, really. Like, even when I'm in workplaces and things, I'm the one that would talk the most. And probably surprise people that I spend an awful lot of time alone. For someone so outgoing, they wouldn't expect someone so outgoing to be so much of a hermit, I guess. I'm so isolating. But that's what I'm like. So it's almost like when I come out, I have fun and I can integrate and merge so beautifully with everybody. And I can get quite excited when I talk to people, especially if people I can get really animated. And then there's that serious side that goes internal. And then once I find that peace and equilibrium, it's like, oh, this is where I want to stay. So I'm happy to do either, really. But what I'm not happy to do, though, is to give myself to the wrong people. I won't allow myself to be abused, taken for granted, manipulated. Anything negative around me does not stay. Um, some of my standards are incredibly high. But I would expect whoever I end up with to equally have high standards. You know, I don't think it should be that complicated, though. I think if you love each other and there's a soul connection, love shouldn't be complicated. There can be complications in establishing and logistics, but I don't think the connection itself should be complicated. I'm quite simplistic like that. I can be very analytical and overthinker, and life itself has so many nuances to it that are a bit more, I think, a bit confusing for many people. But I think when it comes down to the basic concept of love, it just is. So I don't think love is questionable. I think if someone has to explain it, then it's not love, because love just is. And that's what I think about love. It's not to be explained. It's like, are you in love? Do you love that person? It's like a simple yes or no. If it's well, then no, that's not love. Love is a simple yes. Anything else is a big no. Um, so that's what that is. Like I say, um, it gets overwhelming because like I said, because I've got quite a big personality, really. So it just seems a waste to keep it to myself. That's what does it. Sometimes it doesn't make sense. So I've got this quite a lonely sort of hero's journey life to lead. And in some ways, for me, it just doesn't make a lot of sense. But in other ways, it makes absolute sense. The contradictions are incredible. Um, but yeah, I mean, at the moment, my focus now is Christmas. Um, my daughter actually is going to spend majority of Christmas with me this year, which is going to be great. Which we don't normally get. We normally get just a couple of days or here and there, but this time, literally the whole Christmas holidays we got together. And that's a miracle, and I'm looking forward to that. She gets my undivided attention. Um, yeah. Normally we spend it with family, but this year she said she wants it just with me at home, and I was like, well, I like being with like my mum and stuff, but she really just wants it at home, and I'm like, well, okay. So it's just the two of us for Christmas, but that's the way she wants it, and I want to give her the Christmas that she wants, but truly deserves. And we'll have fun. We'll play board games probably. We'll watch movies, have music. She'll enjoy opening all her gifts. We have to cook dinner. But I don't have to do a big dinner. Yeah, it's not like overwhelming nonsense. I'm not a big turkey fan, to be honest. I find it really bland and boring and dry. And she's a picky eater, so she doesn't even eat the meats anyway. So she makes my life easy on Christmas because I've only really got to worry about myself in terms of making it whatever meat I choose. Don't want to digress too far there, but I'm blessed to have her. And the reality is, that's what I talk about. Like, if I live life alone, it's like never truly alone because she's always there or thereabouts. And I'm blessed to have that because she is a kindred spirit. And, I was blessed that the universe brought her into my life. Yeah. But yeah, like I said, there's some incredibly lonely days though. and it gets heavy on the heart, you know? Because effectively, things just lose meaning. That's the problem. I'm a very focused person, so I can get a lot done, but then sometimes I'll just give up. I just genuinely down tools because it gets to that point, like I just said earlier. It's like, what's the point? Like, what is the point of any of it? Is it to acquire wealth? Is it just to have things? What's that going to do for me? You know, that's a distraction for a minute. It'll fulfill me for a day. You know, not it's not that's not deeply fulfilling, is it? Um, is it to self accomplishment? I've already done it. I've already done what I've done already. That's accomplishment. I don't. Do I need any more trophies? And it becomes again service, being of service. But what you here to do? And if I'm here to instigate some change in people's lives, be a positive change, then I take that very serious. And I never thought that would be the case. Like when I was younger, for instance, it wouldn't have thought that at all. That you'd sacrifice so much. But then I didn't realize I had sort of a prophecy to fulfill. You know, I think some things are just bigger than us, and sometimes you've got to humble yourself to it. But yeah, I think at its core, though, I think we just got to love ourselves, and then by loving ourselves, we are more selective of who comes into our lives. And I think by having that high standard, we allow ourselves the opportunity to one day coming to union with someone who truly appreciates us and we appreciate them. And it's not a toxic union because you allowed yourself the time and space to heal. And I think when you set the bar that high and you have that so much love of self, I think you exude that quality outwards. And that's when you attract someone like minded. And it actually makes sense like that because I can't be with someone who is toxic. I can't be with someone low vibrational. I see through them too clearly. So if you think about it that way, that means if I'm supposed to be with someone who's high vibrational, confident in themselves, they know who they are, they have value to their life. If I'm supposed to be someone like that, and I wasn't the version I am today, and I was a very frustrated person, I was still healing, I was going through, you had level of toxicity to yourself. That person would potentially have looked on and thought, "There's no way I can be around that." In the same way that I look on like that. So it makes sense then that you would need to heal. You would need to be ready because then you look on at each other and just share amazement that that person exists, you know? So anyway, I think all we can do is just keep one step forward all the time. Lead ourselves to the promised land. But I think also be prepared to live life alone. But I mean, I cope. You know, it's not all worst thing in the world because you only have the stress. Realistically, it's the stress of being alone, not having so many people to talk to, not having that support. Um, to decisions on your own, it gets a bit boring. So there's no help with resources and things. But on the flip side of that, you've literally got all the freedom to yourself to make decisions when you want without the repercussions of worrying about other people's the fallback on them, for instance. You don't have to worry about their opinions of things, of course, because there's no one else's opinion to consider. And you can literally do what you want when you want. And I think that is one of the most beautiful parts of it all, you know. Last thing you need is someone nagging at you. Oh, I wish you wouldn't do that. Or why are you doing that again? It's like, you do you, I do me. Look back, stop bothering me. Why should what I do bother you so much? Because that's true. If you're in a relationship and someone wants to be with you continuously, then effectively that's for them to heal too, though, because it's like you need to find a level of comfort in yourself. So when you're with someone and around them, then it just elevates you happy. It makes you happy because you've got someone you're collaborating with someone. You know, you're coexisting. But when that person takes time to themselves, that shouldn't be a threat to your existence or make you feel insecure because you should already have that piece of self. So if someone decides to spend time on their own or they have a hobby or a vice and they want to do something, that shouldn't be a threat to someone else. That shouldn't be like, oh, I wish you wouldn't keep doing that. It's like, well, don't try to make me anything I'm not. Um, I'm not going to feel guilty for being me. Doesn't mean you don't take into consideration their needs, but you shouldn't have to lose yourself either, though. And that's the thing, because some people will carry traumas into relationships, and they may take it out on you unwittingly. But that's not fair. That's not fair at all. So sometimes I don't think personally you should be in a relationship until you're ready to be in a relationship. If you can't handle it, don't do it. That's the reality, isn't it? So if you're gonna go into a relationship with insecurities, then maybe you have to consider about like why you carry that insecurity, and is it fair for someone else to carry the burden of that insecurity? You know. Um. So for me, I always give everybody the benefit of the doubt. I don't treat people how someone else treated me because I recognise that that person's entirely unique and they deserve the best opportunity to show who they are. And if I can't do that, then I have no, I don't have the right to be in their presence anyway. Um, Likewise, same said for me. You know, if someone comes into a relationship or union and they carry traumas and they're expecting me to be a certain way, or as soon as I do something, it triggers them a flashback of a memory. That's for them to heal, isn't it? Um, anyway, so many nuances to it, but reality is I'd rather be alone than in a toxic relationship. But I'm truly excited about one day being in a relationship where you're aligned with each other and a mutual respect exists and an immense amount of love that can't be quantified. And when you ask the question, do you love them? There's no hesitation. Yes, that'd be nice. And it'd be nice if someone sees that in me too. That'd be nice. But for now, we just continue doing what we can do and embrace our freedom of time and not try to worry so much.